Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. It's January 2nd as we're recording here today on today's Symphonina Foundation podcast. David Fogel with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation. And I am joined to kick off this 2025 with Jennifer Thomas, Yamaha artist, pianist, violinist, composer. Jennifer, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're up in your studio in Washington. You've got the heaters on.
Yeah,
it's kind of cold start in 2025 to you, but I hope that's not affecting your music in any way except positively.
No, it's been great.
Yeah, I think we first met just briefly at one of the Grammy Museum events last year, and just great to get to know you a little bit better. Of course, we should start with your fantastic album Oceans, for which I've enjoyed not only the album but all the video production that you've done. Not only the videos that go along with the music, but also like the behind the scenes video of how you make the videos and the music, which I encourage everyone to go take a look at on YouTube. They're just all like superior, and the production quality is excellent. So let's start with the music though, before we go to the video. You know, where I know you said in there it took you 4 years to create the whole thing. So let's go back to the beginning of it. And what was your conception for doing it, and then what are the hurdles that you had as you were going? Because 4 years is a long time in production, of course.
Yeah, it doesn't normally take me that long to finish a project, but this was a pandemic album, so that was part of it. Of course, we all had things affecting us during that. But yeah, I originally started with the concept of just doing like a small EP around the topic of ocean folklore, like sirens and pirates and all that kind of fun stuff. And then it eventually evolved into more as I was going through a lot personally, and I just started writing music inspired by that. And that's kind of what, excuse me, it took me a little bit longer as the music started evolving beyond that. And then I've grown up around the ocean my entire life. So it's a huge part of my life. So it's a big mixture of like things that were personally going on with the ocean and my love for the ocean and tying that all together, I guess. So,
well, you came at the ocean in musically, from very different ways. The sirens and the pirates, we appreciate that's kind of standard folklore, But in terms of like looking at the light shimmering on the ocean and having that inspire you, I guess there's a number of ways that the ocean can inspire someone. But how is it that you find those inspirations? Do they just come to you, or do you have to kind of think about them somehow? Is there a creative process that you work with that works for you?
Like you mentioned films, and I have always loved movies. I'm a big movie buff, and since I was a kid, like film scores have always been a huge part of my music collection. And so I think I've always been someone who thinks very visually. And so with nature and just anything with a story, I will hear music in my head and start kind of getting ideas as I'm visually watching something or experiencing something. And so it's kind of like I always have a movie playing in my head of different stories.
That's good. Okay.
And then I can sit down at the piano and kind of start sketching out what that story sounds like. Mm-hmm. So it's fun. Yeah.
Okay. So as a fellow piano player, as you probably know, I played piano a long time.
Yeah.
Do you do anything along the Kenny Werner effortless mastery kind of thing, where you just sit down and play without having anything in mind as to what's going to come to you? Or are you more systematic and think of what the chord progressions are going to be first, or the melodies could, get it all in a certain way? How does it work for you?
Yeah, no, I don't really have like a particular methodology per se. I just, sometimes I'll sit down and I'll just start playing things. And if something sounds really good, I'll start playing around with that idea. And then because I've done film scores and commercial work too. So I have done the complete opposite, where I have to stick to a certain story and it has to be a certain way. So it's almost like, which of the spectrum do you start with? And so I can do either. But I really prefer more just creative approaches of whatever comes and going with that, which is, you never know where that is going to lead. But yeah, I do both, but I'm very systematic with my, I guess the process of writing it down and stuff. I'm very old school. Like I still have I have a pile of manuscript books everywhere in my house. So I handwrite everything out because I'm not a very good improv player. So I'm very classically trained, of course. And so I write everything down. I write all the technical aspects down, and it's very exact in that sense, I guess.
Do you do all that with paper and pencil? I mean, just to no one at home will see this, but there's my book right in front of me. So there you go. We
Yeah.
do it too. But I also have been
Yeah.
doing things in
Same
MuseScore
thing.
and other notation. I know, or comparing notes. So
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah, no,
But
I do handwrite it all out, and then I'll go to my computer and I'll input it in there. But
yeah,
um yeah, I don't know, it just feels very organic for me to just handwrite it. And I also use my manuscript books as my journals, and so like each of the fronts of my manuscript books, I'll have like pages and pages of handwritten like word notes, not just music notes, but words. And so I don't know, it makes more sense to my brain than just using computer. I use computers for a lot too, but yeah, when I'm writing music, I prefer the old school pencil and paper.
yeah. When you're starting to record, well, when you're starting to develop ideas, do you have a recording system on, whether it's a actual microphone or whether it's something that's maybe you're playing into a digital audio workstation and it's just recording automatically, so that you don't lose
Yeah.
anything, or do you lose plenty of stuff
No,
that we all would like
I
to
do.
hear later, but it'll never come back? You know.
Yeah, I do both. Because my piano, my grand piano is in my house because I'm not in my studio right now, so they're very separate. But like if I'm just sketching ideas, I'll have a recorder on my phone where I'm recording audio, so I don't forget things. Because if I don't record it or write something down, I'll go to bed that night and it'll be completely gone the next day. So, yeah. But if I'm out in my studio and I'm doing more orchestration work, then I usually will just record it right into my DAW and layer it that way.
Yeah. You mentioned you're classically trained. How old were you when you started, and how did that all go for you? What was your musical journey?
I started on violin, Suzuki violin, when I was 5. For about 6 months, my mom is a teacher, and she had me start out on that, which was a lot of ear training. And then I went into piano 6 months later, and then did both simultaneously. I did orchestras for years and years, and lots of heavy piano training. And then I went to college for piano, but then I also played violin in the college symphony orchestra. And then after college, I did a lot of performing. I worked for the Seattle Symphony for a couple of years in their education department. That was a fun kind of office rat position where I wasn't paid too much, but I had amazing opportunities to meet so many artists and just experience that world. And then I got into composing after that. So that's kind of a short, brief history.
So I'm guessing that in your 20s is when you got into composing.
Yeah.
By
In
that
fact, I
time,
was, yeah, it had never been even on my radar just because being classically trained is all about performing and perfecting the art of performing. And I never felt like I felt like I was a really decent performer, but my professor in college, he was like, if you want to do this, you have to be like the top 1% of performers. And I never could have
no
like a
pressure.
perfect, flawless performance.
Yeah, yeah, right.
But yeah, yeah. So I got into composing just kind of by accident after I went to college, and yeah, I never actually thought it would go anywhere. I was just kind of piddling around with things, and people started to like what I was doing. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll record an album. I don't know.
Well,
And
people
it's
do. People
obviously.
do like what you do, Jennifer. I count me among them. I was looking on
Oh, thanks.
Spotify. I think one of your compositions there had like 6 million something streams. So
Yeah.
people definitely like what you're doing. So let's talk a little bit. Well, it's one of those branching things. I don't want to lose the branch before we go off another thing. So you had mentioned that you're not much of an improv person, but
No.
but you are a composer, and then and the difference is improv is composition on the spot, whereas the other is you can take as much time as you feel is needed, right, until you decide it's
Yeah.
done. But there is a continuum there, right, of between improv and classical composition, I suppose. So is improv something that you work on at all, or you want to do, or you to kind of just set it aside?
Um, I don't actually like work on it too. I actually just hosted a music party at my house over Christmas, and I
Hmm.
invited a bunch of music friends. And some people brought their violins or guitars, and then we had my piano, and someone brought a flute. Someone else had a trumpet. We were improvising, and I realized like, oh my gosh, I'm so terrible at this. But I did. I got my violin out. I think it depends on the instrument, because for on the violin, I actually felt really comfortable improvising more, and that might be because of my ear training when I was
Hmm.
younger with Suzuki. But yeah, on the piano, it's just such an exact science for me.
Interesting.
I get very confused when someone just wants me to make up stuff on the fly.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So, do you still practice violin and piano all the time then, or are you busy more on the composition side on a day to day?
That's a really good question. I think, when I was in college, I was one of those people who was practicing like 8 hours a day, and that was my
Mm.
life. I feel like I did so much practicing in my 20s that now it's almost like if I have a concert coming up, I can get the music out, a month before the concert and just start practicing every day, and I can be ready for the concert. It's really I'm also a mom, and I have a family, and it's so hard for me to dedicate like every single day to practicing anymore. So it's really just based on what I have going on. If I have concerts coming up, I'll practice heavily. But if I'm working on an album or something, I will definitely be like in my studio doing production work or editing and filming and things like that. So I'm not very good at doing everything all the time.
There's only 24 hours in a day, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Anyway, so back to Ocean Sense. So you've got all the. Let's say we jump ahead. You got the inspiration for your compositions, and you do your own orchestration, I presume, right? You write everything out.
No, actually,
Oh, okay.
I co-produce with a film composer from Sweden. His name is Glenn Gabriel. He's
Hmm.
amazing. We've worked together for about 10 years, and I did orchestrate all of my earlier albums up until the last three, and then we co-produced those. And he does a lot of. I do some orchestration, but he does the bulk of it on the past few albums. And then
Okay.
I have another album coming up that I'm recording early in February, and I did about 50% of the orchestration production on that one. So yeah, it just
Okay.
depends on the project.
Is that something you enjoy doing?
Yeah, it is. But I love the thing I do love about working with Glenn is we have such different ideas. And so if I work on something and I create some orchestration for it, he always brings like a whole new, fresh take on what I've done. And I love the back and forth and just the coming together of ideas.
Yeah. 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 It's good to work with
Yeah.
someone that you can trust like that, and who's also seeing things
Hmm.
from a different perspective than you are. I know you also work with Brian Viberts on the engineering side.
Yeah, Brian,
Yeah,
he's great. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Met Brian for the last year also. So let's talk a little bit about how that all goes when you're going to record the orchestra parts for your pieces. And I guess also I should ask, because I might have missed something. Do you do solo piano work too? I didn't hear that on the Oceans tracks that I listened to, but I might have missed some.
Yeah, no, that album is heavily epic cinematic orchestra
Right.
and choir.
Yep.
Yeah. So last year I released a smaller classical EP that's just solo piano works, but it's not really like the main thing that I do. And in fact, as I've evolved as a composer, I feel like my future even has been evolving more into just like orchestral or choir works and not necessarily piano concerto form, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. All right. So you decide that you're going to do all this in recording, and we have many options in this world of orchestras to use and so forth, and studios to go to, and they
yeah,
each have their own constraints, which usually start with funding. But you know,
yeah.
those are choices that we make. So you recorded, if I know correctly, all of the Oceans work at Abbey Road
Yes.
with was it with the London Philharmonic, or which orchestras were you using?
So I use contracted session players
Ah,
through
okay.
Isabel Griffiths,
Nice.
and
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So we recorded at Abbey Road. That's my second album recorded there. And so it was a little bit more familiar this time, and it was just amazing. The first time, it was kind of by accident that I ended up recording there, and I had such a great experience, and I felt like it just went so fast and professional, and everyone was just so great. Um, Also, there's union rules and things like that that kind of work, I guess, in our favor to record over there versus not just to say like don't. I have recorded in the U.S. of course, but for in terms of like just different union rules and royalty rates and things like that, it does work in my favor a little bit more to record in London. So that is a perk, but yeah, it's been a great experience, and everyone's so talented, and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You said you got there by accident, and that, I mean, I have to, like, wow, somebody got there by accident.
Well,
How did that happen?
no, on my last album, I had recorded orchestra in Seattle, and some of the recordings just didn't turn out the way that I wanted them to. And it was very last minute. Like, Brian and I were mixing the album, and we were just like, oh my gosh, we can't use some of these recordings. What are we going to do? And it was just like a friend who said, hey, I know some people in London. And it was like within a week, I had something, they had a cancellation. I had a plane ticket over there, and it was so fast, and just, yeah, it happened really fast.
Yeah.
So
more serendipity than accident, I would say, on that one.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, that's good. All right, so you did the recording there, and you're familiar with the place now because you've been there, and I have not been there, but I've spoken with many now who have been, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be great. So you do your recordings, and Brian and Gil are there with you, or how does that work in your recording sessions?
Yeah, so Brian actually did come with
Glenn,
me.
I'm sorry, Glenn.
Yeah, no, Glenn's there, and Brian came this last time too. He was the lead recording engineer for Oceans, and that was a lot of fun too. Because usually, Brian is the next step of the process in mixing, and that in itself is like a huge project. And I always apologize to him because I mean, when he's mixing my songs, he's getting hundreds of files to mix, and it's just overwhelming. And I think he really enjoyed the process of being part of the recording because it helped him to kind of pre-organize all of the files that he knew he was getting into. So that was really nice to have him there, and he could pick and choose what mics he wanted to use and how he wanted to organize where this player sat. And yeah, I gave him more control over the mixing process too.
Wow, that's wonderful. Okay, so that would be new to me. So for my symphony recordings, we've worked with Budapest scoring, and then we've also done things where we have our own orchestra with the Symphonina Foundation with players from all over the world, and they record in their own setting, and then I mix them to make them sound like they played together. But I've never had
amazing.
Yeah, well, okay, that's a topic.
I've done that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a topic for another time. But yeah, to be able to go in and have complete control over where people are sitting and what microphones are being used and all that kind of stuff. I'll look forward to the podcast interview with Brian sometime where we can talk a little of that audio engineering geek stuff and see, what he uses for his choices and what guides those choices.
Oh, watch out for the rabbit hole. He will completely nerd out with you on all those questions.
Well, that'll be our Joe Rogan 3-hour format podcast.
Yeah.
So that's okay. We try to keep things a little shorter here. But anyway, all right. So you when you do your recording, I noticed there was one video where you're standing kind of on a stairwell watching everybody do their thing. And I suppose nobody's intimidated by the composer being in the room with them over there. They're all super professionals. They've done it 1,000 times. But what is it like to you as a composer when you're there and having people play your music? I can think of a number of different things that might come to you.
Oh gosh, it's like really emotional because I feel like it's the final step of, you've been working on this thing for me it was a few years working on this, and then it's the final step, and everything that's been in your head or just on paper or in demo form, all of a sudden it's just coming to life and you're hearing it, and it's just so incredible. I mean, I definitely broke down in tears a few times during the recording sessions, just and then to have such incredible players that are so talented who, I mean, I rarely heard a mistake, and it's an honor, and yeah, they just bring it to life. It's amazing.
Yeah, all those players are awesome. I'm watching the video with some of them playing, and I'm like, okay, that was a quick passage. They did it like you can just
Yeah.
not even hearing them, you can tell how smooth they were playing it.
Yeah.
It must have come off just perfectly. So it's a
Yeah.
delight, right, to listen to great players play music, especially your own.
Yeah,
So
there was one song where they had some really, really fast runs to do, like 2 octave runs, and for the violins, it was just like up in the stratosphere, and you know, everything when you're in the studio is very like down to the very minute of like, we only have like this much
mm,
time to record this, and it has to be very efficient.
mm,
And also like these players, they work so hard and they need breaks. And I remember like they were working on this passage, and I'm just like, hey, you guys, you know what you've done sounds great, like you don't need to keep doing it. And but the concert master, he was like, no, 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 we are going to get this until it's exactly perfect for your recording, so we don't care. And I was like,
mm.
oh, that's so nice. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, well, that is good, isn't it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so 4 years to make the album and get it all together, but then you've got all the video production too that goes with it. Each of those videos tells its
Yeah.
own story, and your video production quality is extremely high. So let's
Thank
talk a
you.
little bit about, yeah, you're welcome. Well, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about your experience in getting into video production, because not every violin pianist player is also good at putting together a video story and have it come out, looking like a Hollywood movie.
Oh, you're very kind. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, since I was a kid, I've loved movies, and I think very visually when I write music. And for years, you know, I'd come up with these ideas when I'd write songs of like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to like have this like filmed and have this whole story put along with it. Um, Early on, I started doing music videos with a team in Los Angeles, and it was always an incredible experience. But of course, it's when you have a lot of people involved, it gets very expensive. And so, in 2017, my husband and I decided to kind of branch out and start doing things on our own. And we started buying equipment, and that just has evolved. And of course, the more you do it, you get more experience. And then having worked previously with other directors and cinematographers, we learned a lot as well. So anyway, yeah, everything's just kind of evolved into us doing our own production work, and I write, direct, and edit, and he films everything. And yeah, it's a team effort, and I just love it. Like, it's not something that makes a lot of money. YouTube is not like, oh, I'm making my money back on all these films. So it really has to be more about like the passion of it. And for me, like, even if I never made money from it, I'd probably still do it because I just love it so much. I love it just as much as making music.
When
So
you
yeah.
say passion, well, you have to have a passion for it to have a piano move to a beach.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I saw that. I saw it, like, is she really playing piano on the beach? And I'm thinking, like, there must be like 10,000 people who are thinking the same, like, oh, that was photoshopped in there or whatever, right? And then I'm
Oh
like,
my
no,
gosh.
no, actually not. She's got a trailer at the end where she's
Yeah.
got the piano disassembled and she's actually getting it moved to the beach. So that's
Yeah.
that's
That's so
dedication.
funny. That's the biggest question. I did a concert, this big concert in May, and we did all the videos on stage with this big screen. And after, people were coming up to talk to me, and I thought, oh, you know, they're probably going to ask some questions about the music. Like, no, like every person was like, how did you get the piano on the beach?
It's
Like,
those
was that a
little,
real piano?
I know, it's those little things that go viral, as they say, right?
Yeah.
But let's jump for a second. You did mention a concert. I know you have a concert coming up this year. Why don't you talk a little bit about that for a second? Let our listening audience
Yeah.
know, and then we can come back to a little bit more on the video side. So I think we're performing in May, right?
Yeah, I have a concert May 10th at the Field Arts Concert Hall in Port Angeles, Washington. It's kind of a destination event, so if people want to come travel, I don't do concerts too often, like maybe a few a year. So this is one of them, and I'm super excited. Starting production on it now, and it'll be mostly the music from Oceans and a few other favorites. So yeah.
And do you have a opening act for you too, or is it just you?
This is going to be just me, and I'm going to have some string players on stage performing with me.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just a Jennifer Thomas concert.
Excellent. Well, in the old days when I would go to heavy metal concerts, they'd have an opening act. So
Yeah.
I forget who opened for the Judas Priest concert I went to in 1981. That's a long time ago, but it's okay if you have somebody open for you. That's no problem. But
Yeah.
if it's just you, that's cool too. All right, let's go back to the oceans for a second. So what was your expectation for all your music and your video? As you have you've got 4 years to think about what it is that you want it to be. Is it everything that you wanted it to be and more, or what's your expectation when you're going into composing and the final vision as it comes out?
Yeah. Well, my personal mantra with everything I do is quality over quantity. And so that's why things might take a little bit longer, or I'm not someone who releases an album every year either. And I also don't put something out until it's exactly how I want it. And so for this album, it in every shape and form, it was everything I hoped it would be and wanted it to be. I'm extremely proud of it. It was a ton of work. To put it into perspective, with my last big epic orchestral album, I released that one in 2018. I only did one music video for that album, and for this Oceans album, I've put out 7, and all independently, directed, edited, and it was all us. And so it was a lot of work. It's been a lot of work.
Yeah.
I've been sleeping a lot this Christmas break because I'm just tired.
Well, you got, I'm sure, a lot of recognition for it. I was at the Hollywood Independent Music Awards when your piece was selected as the winner in the classical categories. Congratulations on that.
Oh, nice.
And any other recognitions that you might have gotten that slipped by me. So congratulations on all of it. Are you working on something new though for 2025, or should we expect a little time off as you do your concerts and so forth?
So yes, I do have a new little project that I'm doing for a label in London, Audio Network. So it's more of a production sync album, very different from Oceans. It's all geared towards like spy heist kind of TV film music, which, a little side note about me, like one of my favorite movie genres is Mission Impossible, James Bond, anything with bank heists. And so I loved writing the music for this. It was just everything I wanted to do. And so we're recording that in Abbey Road in February. And then that will come out later this year. And then I have my concert. And then I have other ideas of things I want to do. But honestly, I think I'm going to make it a slower year because I've just been so busy. So yeah. We'll see.
Have you, in your musical career, have you done any music teaching for other students?
I have. I used to teach right out of college for a few years. I had about 30 students. But yeah, it was hard to keep up with writing. I had to pick and choose, and it wasn't my number one passion. So I definitely went into the direction of writing and producing more.
Yeah. For younger people, let's say, who are in their teens or 20s and considering becoming a professional musician in some way, whether it's in a solo performance or orchestration and composition, anything like that, what advice would you give them looking, let's say, 5 years into the future of what you see the music industry to be?
Oh gosh. The music industry is such a jungle. It's definitely, so anyone listening, if you're not in this industry and you have no idea, so every time you release a track, it comes with you have to put a code on it called an ISRC code. And every single day there are over 100,000 ISRC codes uploaded to streaming services. That's a lot of music. And it's very easy as an artist nowadays to feel like you're just one of 100,000 going out into cyberspace. And it can feel really, really daunting. But my biggest advice for anyone who's trying to get into this industry and do this is just stay true to yourself and don't give into pressures of having to do things a certain way or be like this other artist. I think there's really something to be said for being original and being yourself. And early on, I had a lot of people telling me, oh, you should do this with your music, or you should only do solo piano, or you should not do this and that. And I always was like, no, I'm going to do exactly what I want. And it was hard because I've always been like a very outcast in different genres. But I've noticed that really paid off in the long run. You have to be in this for the long game. And if you can stay true to yourself and work hard and be in this for the long game, I think eventually that pays off for you, whether it's just you're proud of what you've done or you actually did something to put a name for yourself. But yeah, I would just say stay true to yourself and work hard.
Yeah, the work hard is always important too, right? Nothing, well, very little comes without effort these days.
Yeah.
But I think another thing for you would be like finding or being open at least to having niches find you, or you find niches that maybe other people haven't filled. I know one of them for you has been ice skating music.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did that come about?
Yeah, my music has been really popular in ice skating, and it was kind of a surprise. It started in 2015. My fans started like messaging me saying, "Oh, did you know your music was on the U.S. figure skating championships?" I'm like, "No way, that's so cool."
So you didn't even know the first time. Wow. Okay. All right.
No, I didn't. And since then, it's gone on to be in a couple of different Olympic Games. It's just this week I've licensed music for the upcoming U.S. figure skating championships and the Worlds. It's just kind of become a thing where it's still exciting to me, but it's just like, oh yeah, another ice skater.
Do you like ice skating? Do you go watch? Do you listen to your music live when you have an event?
Yeah, I actually really love watching so I love seeing people use my art to create their own art, and so it's really amazing. I went to a couple figure skating championships where an ice skater was skating to my music and got to see it live, and that was really incredible. So yeah, I try to watch when I can, and I'll post about it on my social media if there's video or something. It's really exciting.
So the first time that you heard that someone was using your music for ice skating, I mean for anything I would imagine, but for ice skating, did you do a little sleuthing and figure out how they came to choose your music, or make a connection there? Or did you chalk it up to that's how it went?
No, I had no idea on that first time, but since then, like I've talked to different ice skaters over the years, and one ice skater said, yeah, whenever you release a new album, it's like a shark fest of ice skaters of who gets to pick your music and use it first. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And,
oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
The feeding frenzy, because it's also good. They can choose whatever they like,
I guess.
That's good. How did you get to be a Yamaha artist, and how did it go getting associated with Yamaha in general?
Gosh, I don't even remember. You know what? I think so I'm friends with Paul from the Piano Guys, and he connected me with a representative from Yamaha. But it's kind of a funny story too, because I do all these videos where I take pianos out into crazy locations and I film. And I had this one music video called The Fire Within where I set a piano on fire. And it was a really old piano that it kind of went viral with Classic FM in London. They did this article on me, and like not in a good way, where all their fans were basically sending even like death threats because I burned a musical instrument. But anyway,
wait. Pete Townsend destroyed many guitars in his day. I don't think they were complaining.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's not fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but in the classical world, I think it's just like an abomination. Yeah, I know. But yeah, no, I got a lot of flack for burning this piano, but at the same time, like it was a piano I'd used in all these videos. It was old, it was broken, it was like 100 years old, like definitely not worth anything. And at that point I was like, well, shoot, I just burned my piano that I use in my videos. Like I don't know, I have to find a new piano. And at the time, like I had reached out to Yamaha. Anyways, like to make a long story short, it was very serendipitous, and they were like, oh, well, we would like to have you as a Yamaha artist, and this means we'll bring you pianos for your shoots if you want. And it was so great because they've delivered pianos for a couple concerts, and they brought 2 pianos out to the desert for me for that video shoot. And all of a sudden I was just like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I don't have to we still do haul my own piano out, but if it's crazy to get a piano there. They are always so great. Will bring me a piano, which I don't burn their pianos, by the way.
Yeah, we'll put other labels in front of the piano when you do that. Yeah. So, well, okay, it worked for Pete Townsend. It's worked for you. It's all good. I think that.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that artists look to be associated with a brand like Yamaha? Is that, not to plug Yamaha or Steinway or anybody else, just kind of conceptually, is it good to be associated like that? Are there drawbacks to being associated like that? What would be part of the consideration that someone would have if they have that opportunity?
I really think it depends on, like, you have to really believe in the brand. It's really worked well for me in terms of, like, if I need a piano for something, they've been always so great at supporting me and helping me with that. But I'm pretty low on the totem pole at Yamaha. Like, they have hundreds of artists. I think even like Elton John or, these world-known pop artists are also Yamaha artists. And I think they probably get a lot more perks than I do. But yeah, but for what I need, it's been great. And they've been very supportive. But yeah, it's been great.
Sounds great. Well, Jennifer, we wish you all the best for this year and beyond. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
I'm on all the normal social medias, which is great. And then also just my website. I've got a website email contact form there. But yeah, it's been fun to chat with you. Thanks for having me.
Just to make sure, that's jenniferthomas.com then?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. jenniferthomasmusic.com.
There we go. I want to make sure everybody goes to the right place. Jennifer, thanks. We're going to listen to some more of your great music on the way out here. And like I said, we wish you all the best for 2025. We'll keep in touch, and when you got some new music, we'll be sure to get a little promo out there for you.
Well, thanks for having me on the podcast. This was fun to chat with you, David. So thank you.
Our pleasure. Take care.